We Bleed Purple podcast. Daniel Wilcox, Matt Sugar, and this is the 2025 Ravens schedule release show. We are here to break down some of the key matchups and just the overall schedule presentation itself for this season. Daniel, what's going on, man? It's been a little while.
It has been, man. Everything's good, bro. Just working and just doing everything we can to try to get these episodes pushed out to our listeners because we want to have them the best show that we could possibly have them every opportunity we get, man. I'm looking forward to talking about this schedule. This thing just popped out.
Absolutely. Initial takeaways from the schedule, Daniel. We have four primetime games this year. We are playing on Thanksgiving again for the
Hmm.
first time in about 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Um, I believe it's been that long. Um, what are your thoughts with the four primetime games? Do you think it was enough? Do you think it was not enough? Do you think it was too many?
No, I think that's respect. I think having four primetime games before the season started is already showing that you got a lot of respect for the Baltimore Ravens. I think at the same time, those primetime games change throughout the season depending on how well you're playing. They could switch the time of those games at any moment, at any point in time. So hopefully we'll get more about as the season gets started. Just depends on if we have the hot hand or not. Really, honestly, Matt.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have week one, Ravens at Bills on Sunday Night Football on NBC. We have week three against the Detroit Lions on ESPN for Monday Night Football. We are playing the Dolphins week nine on Amazon Prime for Thursday night, and then there's the Thanksgiving game uh, against the Cincinnati Bengals week 13. So the way I see it, the way it looks right now, they definitely gave us a respect, like you were just talking about. It was definitely a respect thing, and it just sucks that all of these games, with the exception of I mean, they split it down the middle, but we haven't had a home Monday Night Football game. It seems like in forever. I think we've had one in the last handful of years, and we're home against the Bengals for um, Thanksgiving night, and then we actually got the Lions at home, which is crazy. Like
Hmm.
it feels like we were always on the road on Monday Night Football, and that's where Lamar Jackson seems to play his best ball.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about the opponents that we have for these primetime games?
Okay, so Monday night we got the Detroit Lions. I think that's going to be a heck of a game. They're doing a heck of a job over in Detroit right now. This is probably the best the Lions have looked in the history of the franchise. They actually look phenomenal right now. So I believe that really will be a really great Monday night football game to watch. And then the next one we have is what? Is there another Monday night game? Or is there
It's
only one?
it's a Thursday night game.
Thursday.
We play the Cincinnati,
Since
or
Miami
no, we play the
Dolphins.
Miami Dolphins on
Yeah,
Thursday Night Football.
we got the Dolphins on Thursday night football. I like that too. I don't know if I like it that late in the season. I think early in the season I probably would have liked it a little bit better. Of course they got their struggles and they got Tyreek trying to get up out of there, and then Tua who's been beat up and banged up a lot. We don't know what that franchise is going to look like, so I would have liked to play them earlier in the year versus in the middle of the season like that. But it could be a really good game to watch on prime time if Dolphins are hot at that time. And of course with me, Matt, the thing I'm always worried about in these seasons before these things really pop off is the injuries, right? So if we're healthy and they're healthy, then that could be a really phenomenal game. But if one of the teams are beat up, then that game will be a trash game to watch.
Yeah. One thing that really stood out to me about the schedule this time around is we seemed to have gotten an early bye. Our bye week is in week 7 this year. It's
Hmm.
very early, because the byes start in week 5. So we got a pretty tough stretch the first part of the season, Daniel. We got Buffalo in Buffalo opening night. We got Cleveland at home. We got Detroit at home on Monday Night Football. Then we're in Kansas City.
Hmm.
We're home again for the Houston Texans, and then we have the Los Angeles Rams before that bye.
Yeah.
And then we come off the bye and we're playing the Chicago Bears at home, and then we're at Miami on Thursday Night Football, and then we're in Minnesota, and then we're in Cleveland. So after that bye, three out of the next four games are all road games, and it's really weird, Daniel. I wanted to ask you about this. We'll get back to the first six games. Do you ever remember being a player where you played three straight road games and then three straight home games?
Nah, I don't remember at all. I don't remember how the schedule was laid out for most of those years I played. I don't know if it's a concussion thing or whatever, Matt, but I just don't remember. I can't remember if we played a bunch of road games back to back to back, and then came home with a bunch of home games. But I'm sure it probably worked out that way somewhere along my path in my career where we kind of had that kind of situation. I know it's hard to win on the road. I don't care where you go play, and in
Hmm.
some places are a lot worse than others. But wherever you go play in this league, it's very hard. It's extremely hard to win on the road.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's not your typical road games. We're in Miami on a Thursday night, and then we turn back around and we head to Minnesota in week 10,
Hmm.
and then we head to Cleveland. So it's not that's a lot of traveling. All the way down to South Florida, all the way
Yeah,
up to Minnesota, all the
and
way
then over to
not too
Cleveland.
far back. That's a lot of hopping on planes for you guys. And
Yeah,
um,
excuse me.
the first getting back to the first 6 weeks, man. That's a tough stretch right there. Buffalo,
Hmm.
Cleveland, Detroit, Kansas City, Houston, Los Angeles.
Yeah, you got to do the Buffalo game because how we lost this in the playoffs. So they got to make
Right.
that game the first game of the year to kind of give us our rematch. It's like having a heavyweight fight. You go and you beat the champion, and then all of a sudden, they want a rematch, and then that rematch they expect they draw a lot of numbers, and a lot of people tuning in to see that. That's why it's a season opener. They expect to get a bunch of viewers to want to see that game and want to see how it's going to turn out. I think that's our chance to kind of assert our dominance and show people who we really are, and hopefully we've kind of figured out what our true identity is by now, and we're ready to shock the world and show the entire world what that identity is.
I agree. They got to come out swinging. Buffalo is a must. You got to go up there and make a statement. That's your statement game right off the break.
Hmm.
Now we're facing a possibility in week two where Joe Flacco might start his first game in M&T Bank as a visiting quarterback.
Yeah, that's exactly why it's week two. I was just about to say that. Exactly why
Yeah,
it's week two. Joe Flacco coming back to Baltimore, possibly a starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. They expect for that to be a highly viewed game as well. And I think whoever did the scheduling for that was pretty genius. Definitely try to set those two back to back and see what happens. That may be a game that Joe get knocked out in. Then you got to have the backup come in and play. Because these guys are going to hunt regardless. You just
yeah,
never know how it's going to turn out. But I pray the best for Joe and his family. I hope they continue to do. I hope he continues to play well in this league and get more opportunities.
yeah. I'm excited to see Joe come back to Baltimore. Looking at the schedule, obviously Detroit Monday Night Football. That's going to be at home. That's going to be a
Hmm.
rocking stadium. They're
Yeah,
probably going to do the all black, the light show and all that stuff.
yeah,
That might be, I'm forecasting maybe a little bit of a potential preview. That might be a night where Daniel Wilcox shows up in Baltimore, carrying the shield out of the tunnel, sitting in the guest suite. You know,
That's the Terrell Suggs thing, isn't it? That whole shield thing.
that used to be the Suggs thing, yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, and then we got Kansas City in Arrowhead, and then we're
It's gonna
back
be a
home
heck
for
of a game.
Houston, and we're back home for Los Angeles. These, I don't think I really don't think C.J. Stroud's going to be as bad as he was last year, Daniel.
Yeah.
Uh, it, that might have just been a sophomore slump, but I don't see him being that bad again.
No, CJ is a phenomenal quarterback. He was my pick out of the two quarterbacks the year that they got drafted, him
Mm-hmm.
and the Bryce Young kid. I thought CJ was the better candidate for the first pick overall, but they ended up taking Bryce Young to Carolina. I like CJ a lot. I think last year wasn't necessarily a fluke. He still had a decent season. It's just that he got pressured so much. He got so
Yeah.
many sacks and he had so many injuries. Like the injury bug is a serious bug, and they had a lot of it last year. Most of his offensive line was out injured, and he just wasn't protected very well. So he kind of got a little gunshot back there. I mean, you can only punch me in my face one time before I won't duck next time you do it. So
Yeah.
him ducking and him trying to get out of the way of getting hit in the back and the neck, I can't really blame the kid. And he still put up numbers. Even last year, even during that entire ordeal, he still put up numbers and played well. So he's a guy that I think would definitely bounce back. I'm hoping the Texans did a phenomenal job, recruiting and picking up free agents and signing draft picks that they're able to protect this kid this year and give him a legitimate chance.
It's going to look a little bit different with their offense this year. Joe Mixon is returning, but Tank Dell is expected to miss the entire uh, season with that gruesome leg injury.
Yeah.
Um,
Was he the one that caught the ball in the back of the end zone in the
I
playoffs
believe that.
and blew his knee
I
out?
don't. Yeah, it wasn't Nico. It was Tank
Yeah,
Dell.
that's tough.
Yeah, so Tank's gonna miss the entire year, and then Stephon Diggs is a New England Patriot now.
Crazy.
Um, so they're they reloaded through the draft and all that stuff. But Los Angeles Rams, no Cooper Cup this year. Still Puka Nakua, who's a monster. Um,
Hmm.
they still got Matthew Stafford. They still got Kyron Williams at running back. It's looking to be a pretty rough stretch. If we can get out of the first 6 weeks at 4-2, I consider that a victory.
Hell
You,
yeah. I mean, we playing against some really good teams first week, the
uh,
first 6 weeks.
yeah, and then you really don't know after that bye. You don't know what the Chicago Bears are going to be.
Right.
You know, Chicago, they have a young quarterback. They have a good running back in DeAndre Swift. Um, they got two really good receivers in DJ Moore and Romo Dunzier.
Hmm.
Um, Tight end, they drafted Colton Loveland in the first round. They still got Cole Komet. They got a pretty stellar defense. And then you got a short week again in Miami, and then you're in Minnesota, you're in Cleveland. You're not back home again until week 12 against the New York Jets, who are led by Justin Fields.
Hmm.
So that's going to be a whole new look for the New York Jets. And then after that Jets game, you got another short week where you're playing the Cincinnati Bengals on Thanksgiving, and it's a little odd that they put both Thursday night games for the Ravens within a month of each other. You know that's a little odd to me
Yeah.
at least.
So intrusive. Um, I think I can't say they plot to make sure that the Ravens have a hard schedule, but I don't think teams expect the Ravens to be as good as they are year in and year out.
Hmm.
And they put these teams on the schedule thinking that these teams are actually going to win. But I think the Ravens could win, probably about 14 of these games out of the 17. Like we're very stacked. We're stacked at multiple positions, and we got a little depth all over the place. And then we got guys that with talent. Yeah, they may need to be modified a little bit,
Yeah,
to work for you, but they got talent. They really do. So I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know exactly what to expect with this season, but I can tell you what they. I think they try to stack our schedule up against the Ravens to try to make it a little bit harder on them. But I think we're still going to shock the world this year, and we're going to do
yeah.
some things that people wasn't expecting us to do.
Because coming off the heels of that Cincinnati Bengals game on Thanksgiving night, you're at home again against Pittsburgh, and then you're in Cincinnati 2 weeks
Hmm.
later for an away game, which is always notoriously hard.
Right.
Then you have the New England Patriots, the Green Bay Packers, and then you round out the year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you play 4 out of your 6 divisional games in the last quarter of the season, and then you have a trip to Green Bay sandwiched right at the end of that ordeal. So it's definitely gonna be interesting, you know, to see what's being talked about
Hmm.
with that Green Bay. The Green Bay trip is going to be that's already a really popular one, in Ravens Nation
Yeah.
so far. Green Bay, that's going to be a hot commodity for a lot of people to go to. That's probably going to be a lot of Christmas presents right there for a lot of people. But like you just alluded to, Daniel, before we kind of move on to some personnel news with the Ravens, um, you said 14 wins. Do you believe that is lofty, or is that an expectation looking at the way
It,
this team is built?
it's kind of lofty, but I feel like we're stacked and we did a great job in the front office. Not saying that nobody else did a great job, but I feel like our front office has done a phenomenal job recruiting and getting guys in here and signed. And we was already kind of deep. Losing the Darius Washington kid as early as we did definitely gonna hurt us. A little bit because that kid was really starting to come into his own. And I'm
Yeah,
sure he had a lot of confidence coming into the season before he got hurt.
yeah. I was looking forward to that. I was
Yeah,
looking forward to uh, seeing our Darius take another step, especially with Malachi Starks back there now.
yeah,
We're gonna probably have to rely on either one of the guys we drafted in the last couple of years of Bo Brader or Sanusi Kane, or we might look outside the organization. Today,
yeah,
the Ravens added a nose tackle to replace Michael Pierce from retirement. John Jenkins. He's a 35, almost 36-year-old nose tackle. He's been around the league a very long time. Um, he's not going to start, obviously, because they don't really start a nose tackle anymore like that. Um, but he's serviceable, and I think that he's a good addition to this team. He's definitely going to give some depth behind Travis Jones, who's probably going to be the starting nose tackle this year. Yeah, but our Darius hurts, man. That really hurts. That's a huge blow to our defense. The second half of the year, he came on really strong, and it was rough to see. Yeah, thanks Zach for mentioning John Jenkins. That's going to be a good one. And then we got my cousin Daniel. This is my cousin Jeff. He's a huge Green Bay fan. I don't understand and I don't know why, but he's a
yeah,
Baltimore guy, born and raised, and he's a Green Bay fan. So
yeah. Jeff is rude. He's extremely rude, Jeff. Come on our actual platform, knowing we bleed purple, and you're gonna tell my Green Bay gonna crush us. Come on, that's weird.
yeah,
It's really
yeah,
weird.
that's yeah. I'm looking forward to this schedule. I realistically think that we can win 13 games. We always lose a game that we shouldn't lose, and we
We
talked
do.
about that on our previous iteration of this show a lot last year, where we lost games that we shouldn't have lost. The
Yep.
Raiders being a perfect example.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to be one of those situations like the Chicago Bears. We should beat the Chicago Bears.
Right.
We should beat the Minnesota Vikings now that they don't have Sam Darnold. We should be able to beat the New England Patriots with the way their team is being built. They're still a little ways away.
Right.
We should beat the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Uh, week 17, that's when Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are going to be, you know, clicking on all cylinders. And I don't think there's going to be as much of a delay to that this year, though. That's just me. But
Yeah.
speaking of Derrick Henry, Daniel,
Yeah.
Derrick Henry got a new contract.
2 years, baby.
2 more years, 30 million, 25 guaranteed. He's
Mm.
31 years old.
Mm.
That's that's the richest contract for an NFL running back over the age of 30 in the history of football.
That's crazy.
It is. It is crazy, but it is deserved. I know I believe it's deserved.
I think he deserve more than that. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I
I
mean
mean,
he did himself a favor getting paid again, and then he did us a favor by not breaking the bank for us. So Lamar's probably next. And look, and today Brock Purdy got paid 5 years, $265 million. So that yesterday's price is not today's price for Lamar Jackson. Um, do you believe that his contract falls somewhere in that 55 to 60 million per year, where you might see him get another 6 year extension?
who Lamar?
Yeah, where it's 360 million with 300 guaranteed.
I don't see him getting another extension right away. I think because of the fact that his contract's not totally up yet.
It's not, but he counts 75 million against the cap next year.
Yeah, I mean they may try to go and renegotiate it with his
Hmm.
mom, but since it's him and his mom, he's kind of like playing as his agent. I don't think she's as versed as some of these agents are, like as far as reaching out to teams and,
Hmm.
hey, let's get this thing worked out. Let's get it figured out right away. Let's go ahead and do it before his contract's up. That way you don't have to pay as much. You know, like having that logic sometimes is worth having an agent because your parents will be just trying to cap it off and all that type of stuff. They don't forget that you don't need the agent. You know.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's going to get done. I don't think Lamar Jackson ever plays a snap of an NFL game for another franchise. Um, he's here for a while. His cap number goes up insanely high next year, but I think they get that worked out. Um, we talked about it on the last show where they picked up Kyle Hamilton's fifth-year option and they declined Tyler Linderbaum. They're going to get that done too.
Yeah.
This salary cap goes up every single year, so it's not
It
a
does.
huge deal. But I do want to ask you about the Ardarius Washington situation. Um, a lot of people have a lot of things to say about a player getting hurt while they're training. Um, I wanted to ask this because it came up on social media a little bit, and you have a little bit more, actually, a lot more knowledge to it. If you get hurt training off team premises, does the team hold that against you, or do they just kind of go with the flow to
They hold,
what's
they
going
hold,
on?
they hold it against you. So it's like they hold it against you for definitely for sure, Matt. It's one of those things was like conduct detrimental to the team.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing something that could jeopardize your contract or jeopardize the team in any form or fashion, then they will definitely be frowned upon by those the guys upstairs.
Yeah, it wasn't disclosed where the injury happened. It just said that he popped his Achilles while he was doing conditioning drills, to stay in shape.
Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna take it back to your playing days again. Um, when you went through a grueling season, barring any injuries, how long did you wait before you really started ramping up your training for the following year? Because it seems like some guys hit the ground running after 2 weeks. Some guys wait a little bit longer. Some guys don't really ramp it up until they're getting ready to report to minicamp. So, what was your regiment like in the off season, like rest wise and then training?
What were my off season like as far as training?
Yes.
Hmm. So as soon as the season was over, with, I always try to take a quick vacation, like maybe a week off, to
Okay.
try to get away from football because the season is such a long, grueling season. But as soon as I get back from that, then I jump right into training. And what I normally do is I try to ramp it up as it goes. So I just start off with you know, just trying to get in shape. Just trying to get back in shape and to keep my wind up and to run and lift. I'll usually lift for an hour, run for an hour every day, or 4 or 5 days out of the week. Then take a day or two off, and then as the off season goes on, the off season is very short. And people think
Mm-hmm.
it's like we got months and months, but it's usually only like a month, 2 months, and you're right back in camp, and you're doing OTAs and organized team activities and mini camps and then all that stuff. So, but for that month of January and February, March, you're doing everything you can to try to train your body to prepare it for the season that you got to take. So as we get deeper and deeper, I start doing more position specific type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Start running routes, start catching balls, and start getting in and out of my breaks so that when I get to camp, I won't be out of shape totally because I really can be out of shape. Going
Mm-hmm.
into camp, like you could run all summer and then get into camp and won't be in camp shape. Camp shape is a series of short sprints, that are usually timed within 20 seconds, and then you're doing these fast, long speed, all out 100% wind sprints, and you're stopping and changing direction and all that type of stuff. So I try to transition over to one on ones and all that stuff by the time I get back to mini camps and training camp. That way I come in some kind of camp shape versus coming in just in shape. If you come in shape, you won't be in camp shape, and then you won't still be in hitting shape. There's no way that you can replicate hitting shape until you get to camp. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I do really feel bad for our Darius. Wishing him a speedy recovery. It's sad to see because he was poised to have a starting position on this defense, and get some significant playing time. Now
Yeah.
you've suffered your fair share of injuries throughout the course of your career. What is it like preparing for the next season, coming back from an injury? Because Ardarius is going to have to obviously get his surgery, rehab, and get back to full strength for uh, the 2026 season. So, how does the mentality of the training and the rehab change when you're coming off of a significant injury like that? Because you dealt with a couple yourself as a Raven, and what's the how do you mentally prepare differently to avoid any type of situation like that again?
Well, ain't nothing you can do to really to avoid injury but go full speed. It's a full speed sport, so you got to train fast, you got to work hard, and you got to lift hard. And then you got to work explosive movements all the time. So there's no real way to stop from getting hurt. I tell people all the time that the NFL or football is 100% injury rating every year. You're gonna get hurt at some point of the season, no matter what. It's a big difference from being hurt and being injured. Injured you can't practice, but hurt you can still practice through hurt. We play through pain every single day. We work through pain every single day. So I don't let that get us down at all. So what I do is just focus on what I can control. And what I can
Mm-hmm.
control is my tempo, my speed, and my awareness around me. Most of the time we get hurt standing around the pile, not hustling to the ball or getting to the ball late and they already made the tackle and guys are still jumping on the pile or somebody get pushed. And,
Mm-hmm.
because guys act like they're gangsters on the field sometimes. So somebody end up getting pushed and then they fall into you or something and you end up falling over somebody else or tripping over something and hurting your leg or some kind of way like that, or somebody dive on the pile and flies off the pile and end up hitting you, or somebody gets swung around while you're running up to make a tackle and they take you out.
Yeah, that's a not even really a thought process to the
Hmm.
common fan because of course they don't know from firsthand experience. But I was always curious because training when you've never been hurt or training while you're not hurt is a completely different beast than training when you know you're coming off of a catastrophic injury like that because
Yeah,
it's not like you have a broken wrist or a broken hand or some jacked up fingers or anything like that of that type of manner. It's really it's a vital ligament, so
yeah,
that's how you generate your explosive ability, right?
yeah. Achilles is a tough one, man, because like any injury that you have playing football or whenever you get hurt, you don't realize how important that body part is until you get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you get hurt, you're going to feel a different type of pain and there's going to be a different type of rehab, but his rehab will be intense. He would probably do a lot of stuff in the swim X, a lot of stuff in the water, water resistant type stuff. And he'll probably be picking up marbles with his toes and all that type of stuff because that's just part of like the anything you have lower extremity injuries, you're gonna have to do
Mm-hmm.
that. But sometimes they'll put a towel on the floor and then you got to reach out and grab the towel with your toes and kind of pull it back and then reach again and keep pulling it back and reach again and keep pulling it back.
Ah,
So they got to do little things like that just to get your your mobility back and your flexibility back. Then you got to stretch it and you got to go to the chiropractor. The chiropractor will scrape it, try to get all the scar tissue to break up and all that type of stuff so that doesn't restrict you from being able to move the way you did prior to the
wow.
injury. A lot of time it's more of a mental thing that kind of stops you from getting back to your full self because you're so worried you're going to do it again. So if there's a level of PTSD that comes along with every injury that you have, and you're worried and you're afraid that you may possibly re-injure it and it set you
Mm-hmm.
back all over again from the start. And then sometimes it heals and it doesn't heal right, and you have to have another surgery after you went through 3-4 months of rehab.
Right. So moving away from the technical and the training side of it,
Yeah.
with with what we saw from the 2024 season, Daniel, with
Hmm.
the secondary, Brandon Stevens is no longer with us. He's a New York Jet.
That's gonna
Arthur
be an
Millette,
interesting game.
yeah, it's gonna, yeah. I hope Lamar Jackson just lights him up. That's gonna be so fun to watch.
It's gonna be an interesting game, man. I'm
He's
telling you
not
right
even
now.
gonna throw at Sauce. He's just gonna throw at Stevens the whole game. It's gonna be funny because Stevens can't find the ball to save his life, and now we can laugh for 2 episodes instead of bitch for 35 episodes. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So that's gonna be fun. But I know Sanusi Kane and Bo Braid both didn't have a whole lot of playing time this year. Do you think the organization goes to the street free agents, the guys are sitting at home. Do you think they
Absolutely.
look at like a Justin Simmons or a Julian Blackman or even a potential reunion with Chuck Clark? Do you think that's an avenue that Eric is
Absolutely.
going to take?
Absolutely. I think that's definitely an avenue that we're going to take. There'll be a continuous search for help throughout the Ravens organization. So every single Tuesday, like I told you all the time, they bring guys in to work them out.
Right.
If there's a safety that's out there, he's going to step foot in the Ravens facility right now in the next probably month, and then they're going to evaluate that guy. If they think he's in great shape and he looks good, they'll write it down. If they think he's not in great shape, he's not taking it serious, they'll write it down. They'll write guys off, and then they'll put guys on the to do list, like the pickup, if
Mm-hmm.
if something else happens, right? They may just ride what they got right now, and then just wait a little while, and then they may start bringing guys in eventually. But they won't allow a really good player to escape their grasp if he's out there right now. They're gonna put Ardarius on IR right now for the year, which gives them a free roster spot to bring in another
Right.
guy, and then they'll bring in that other guy to replace Ardarius reps.
Speaking of roster movement, um, David Ojabo was taken off of the 90-man roster, and he was put on the international player exempt list to where
Hmm.
he doesn't count against the 90 man in the offseason.
Hmm.
So he was a second round pick. He's been very up and down in his time here, and now he's not even on the guaranteed 90 right now. That's a little bit of that was like a random mid afternoon like news blip. It wasn't even they didn't even make a big deal about that.
Yeah. What did
Um,
they say they put him on the list for?
he's now like every team gets the practice squad, and then you get one international player exemption, and they used that player exemption this year on David Ojabo. So he's not even technically counting against the 90 man right now. He's counting against the 17 practice squad spots.
Right.
And
That's a
with
blessing.
our Darius going on the IR, that roster spot does open up. Um, as long as they don't bring Marcus Williams anywhere near Baltimore again, I'm okay.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. They're not bringing Marcus back. They're gonna bring in somebody that's gonna be positive enough and that's gonna be impactful enough in the locker room to help them get to where they want to go ultimately. The goal is still going to the Super Bowl. Even though we fell short the last 2 years, the goal is still going to another Super Bowl and winning one. I think Steve Bisciotti has made it known that he wants another Super Bowl. And I don't blame him. I would want one too. I just hate we lost these last 2 years because
Yeah,
those two Super Bowl teams that we should have won with.
yeah. Obviously Harbaugh's not going anywhere, and Eric is firmly entrenched at GM.
Yeah,
I think he had another fantastic draft.
he did. He did. He did
Um,
phenomenal.
yeah, he made some magic happen again. Um, what are your expectations? You said 14 wins. Do
Hmm.
you believe that our Super Bowl window is closing, or do you think it's relatively wide open as long as Lamar Jackson's our quarterback?
I definitely think it's open while you got Lamar. Lamar is such a dynamic player that he could take over a game at any moment. He just has to believe that he got that gene and he's that guy. He's him. Lamar is
Right.
legitimately him. Like he needs to really take pride in just trying to take over the game without doing too much. Like there's a certain thing to feel pressure, to feel like you got to take over a game, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's another thing to be like, I got this, and then be confident enough to just kind of take it over. So I want him to do way better than what he's been doing, and that's saying a lot because he's had MVP years probably the last 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
But I think he is arguably the best player to probably one of the best players to ever play this game, if not the best quarterback to ever play this game, and that's on the high note. Just giving him props because he's a super dynamic player. Yes, he's fell short of the Super Bowl, and I'm not even sure if that's going to even come into play when it's the decision of whether or not he's a Hall of Famer player or not. Because there's other quarterbacks in the league that made it to the Hall of Fame but never went to a Super Bowl at all.
Yeah. Speaking of our superstar quarterback, he made his acting debut
Ha.
a
Yeah, he did.
couple of weeks ago, and
Raising Canaan.
you and I started talking. You actually hit me up when you saw it.
Yeah.
You're like, did you see Lamar? Lamar walked out of a bathroom stall and popped some dude that just took a bump, and
Yeah.
He had like four speaking lines in the entire episode, and
I was proud of him.
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you gotta be. I mean, our guy is an actor now, so he's expanding into you know, you know, crossover superstardom, and other than just the NFL,
Yeah,
which is the biggest monopoly in the world.
100%. Like I love that for him, man. It's one of those things where the things are so different now than how it was when I played. There wasn't any social media or anything like that. Every time I see a guy do something, I'm super happy and proud for him. But I
Hmm.
also have the owner of the team, Steve Bisciotti, kind of in the back of my ear telling me, man, like, look, you want to do great in this league? Just focus on this league. Just focus on the league, and the league will do right by you. You don't keep doing all this other stuff to make money and all these other things, and you wasting your time doing that stuff. Right now, this is the biggest investment that you have. So take full advantage of this investment. So that kind of plays in the back of my head. When I see guys do other things, but I'm also super proud. That these guys are taking the next step to try to better themselves in any way possible. And our window of opportunity to make money in the NFL is very small. So you have to be able to stretch that money for the rest of your life, which is damn near impossible. So I like to see guys doing other,
Hmm.
you know, endeavors outside of football to be able to make a little money on the side. But I was super proud to see him on Raising Canaan on the Stars Network, and he did a phenomenal job, man. He really did. I thought he played this role well. He played like a little street thug or gangster, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And he just honestly, he fit right in. He fit right in, like with the whole crew, the characters,
Hmm.
everybody they had. He was from New Jersey, and the other guy was from New York that was talking crap to him, and he said his lines and said it well. I was really proud of him.
Yeah. One thing that was mentioned a lot on social media was they didn't have him speak a lot because you can't mask that South Florida accent
Hmm.
and pass it off as New Jersey or New York.
Right.
So I just thought that was funny, but it was cool to see him on television.
It
Um,
was.
you know, I'm really looking forward to this season. Daniel, I know you're not a baseball guy, but my Orioles absolutely suck right now.
Yeah.
So over on our Foul Ball Talk YouTube channel for our baseball show,
Hmm.
uh, it's nothing but trauma therapy. But we are looking forward to a fantastic football season here. So you said 14 wins. I'm gonna round the show out with this.
Yeah.
You said 14. Who were
Yeah.
the three losses?
It's a great question. All right, let me go over this thing right quick. Let's look at this schedule. I think we beat Buffalo. I think we beat Cleveland. I think we beat Detroit. Kansas City always gives us a run for our money. That may be one, but I think we could pull that off if we really focus. I think we'll beat Houston. I think we may lose to Los Angeles. I think we'll beat Chicago. I think we'll beat the Dolphins, the Minnesota Vikings, Cleveland Browns. I think we'll sweep them. Pittsburgh may be a tough one for us. And also Green Bay. I saw Jeff saying something about Green Bay earlier.
Yeah,
Um,
he apologized.
yeah, it's
I
more
posted
sorry.
this.
Didn't mean to be rude. No, I was just messing with you, Jeff, about being rude. No, you good, bro. You can say whatever you want to say on here. That's what it's all about. Um,
He loves watching us. By the way,
yeah,
he just thinks just I'm not tooting my own horn, but his little cousin. I'm the second youngest cousin in my family, so
yeah,
um, for our generation, but
yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know if we could lose to Green Bay though.
I think we could lose to Green Bay. I think we could lose to Pittsburgh, maybe even Cleveland once. But I would like to think we'll sweep the AFC North. But that's almost impossible to do with the way these teams play each other.
See, I think we dropped one to Cincinnati.
Yeah,
I we played them twice in 3 weeks, and then one of them's on Thanksgiving. I think we win the Thanksgiving. Something tells me I think we're
Cleveland,
13.
Cincinnati, or Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think we're 13-4 this year. I'm gonna go early prediction. I know we're gonna
Okay.
probably talk about it again the closer we get. I think we get our revenge on Buffalo. We beat Buffalo week one. I think we get out of the first month of the season 3-1. I think we lose to Kansas City. I
I can
think
see
we
that.
beat Houston. I think we're gonna lose to Los Angeles. I agree with you on that. I think the Rams are gonna get back at home against us. So I got us the first 6 weeks. I got us being 4-2, and then I got us losing to Cincinnati in week 15, and I got us losing to Pittsburgh week 18. And the only reason why I think we might lose to Pittsburgh in week 18, Daniel, is I think we might be resting all of our starters by that point. It might be a
Yeah,
game where you see Cooper Rush at quarterback and, Keaton Mitchell might be starting at running back
yeah, I
that
like to
week,
see
or
that.
Justice Hill. I'm not saying that they're, going to definitely lose that, but I don't see Pittsburgh, that game in Pittsburgh, I don't see it being important. They're the team that shocks me the most in the AFC North this year, man, because just when you thought that they were going to have a high powered offense, they trade George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys for a third round pick.
Hmm.
And then they don't have a quarterback. Their quarterback is Mason Rudolph,
Yeah,
who spent last year in Tennessee as a backup to Will Levis. But unless Aaron Rodgers, shows up, I don't see them being a threat to anybody. They lost Najee Harris as well.
yeah.
He's over in with the Chargers now. He replaced J.K. Dobbins over there.
Hmm. Okay.
So it's always interesting this with this AFC. But they really surprised me. But yeah, that'll wrap up the show, Daniel, for this week's episode of We Bleed Purple. For the scheduled release edition, we talked a little bit about some of the personnel moves. First show we've done where there is no off-field drama, Daniel. The Ravens didn't make the headlines for any other reason this week other than losing our Darius Washington, which was, a sad situation.
Yeah, I agree. Losing a Darius gonna hurt us and set us back a little bit. Well, we got to bounce back from it no matter what, man. I kind of actually, it's one of those things was kind of a gift and a curse. You hate to see the guy get hurt. You hate to see him have to go through rehab and
Mm-hmm.
miss an entire season, especially when he was about to get his first true start as a safety.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, you kind of want to see what Malachi Stark is going to do. So kind of excited about seeing him and Kyle Hamilton back there at the two safety spots. Coming downhill on people and then picking off everything that's thrown.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that kind of excites me. Go ahead.
That Malachi Starks pick looks even better now,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. That'll do it for us this week, folks. Thank you for tuning in and interacting with the show. Daniel and I appreciate all the viewership and the interactions. We will be back next week to cover your next batch of Baltimore Ravens news. You can find me on X at mtrigwbp and on our YouTube channel, We Bleed Purple Pod. Please like, share, subscribe. We're trying to build our following. We are up to about 40 followers right now, Daniel. So,
Okay.
hey, we're steadily increasing those numbers. But you can find Daniel Coach Wilcox on X. He's on Facebook. Just type in his name. He's very interactive with
Yeah.
fans and followers. And that'll do it for this show, folks.
Thank you guys for tuning in, man. We believe purple. Let's do it.